The annual Morrison family dinner was in full swing at my parents' sprawling estate, crystal glasses clinking as my brother Marcus held court at the head of the table. I sat quietly in my usual spot near the kitchen door, wearing the same paint-stained jeans and faded t-shirt I'd worn to my studio earlier. It was all part of the facade I'd maintained for the past 8 years. So there I was, closing the biggest deal of the quarter, Marcus announced, his custom-tailored suit practically gleaming under the chandelier light. 15 million in revenue just like that. He snapped his fingers, drawing appreciative murmurs from our assembled family members. I took another sip of wine, fighting back a smile. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., Marcus would learn that his company's mysterious new buyer was actually his failed artist sister. But for now, I played my part. And what about you, Sophie? My mother's attention swiveled to me, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing vaguely. Still painting. The way she said painting made it sound like a terminal illness. I nodded, dabbing my mouth with a napkin. Yes, Mom, still painting. In that garage of yours, Marcus chimed in, his smile sharp as a knife. What was it you sold last month? A watercolor of some flowers? For what, $200? More like orchestrating a $40 million acquisition deal, but I simply shrugged. 300, actually. The table erupted in uncomfortable laughter. My father cleared his throat, shooting me that same disappointed look I'd grown accustomed to since graduating from Yale Business School and announcing I was pursuing art instead of joining the family company. You know, Sophie, he began, using his concerned parent voice, there's always a place for you at Morrison Tech. Even in marketing, if you insist on doing something creative. I thought about my real office occupying the entire top floor of a downtown high-rise, where I ran Nova Dynamics, one of the fastest-growing technology consulting firms in the country. The company I'd built from scratch while maintaining the illusion of being a struggling artist. Thanks, Dad, but I'm happy where I am. Marcus snorted into his wine glass. Happy living in that tiny apartment, driving a 10-year-old Civic? Come on, Soph. You're 32. Don't you think it's time to grow up? If he only knew about my penthouse in Manhattan, my villa in Tuscany, or the Tesla parked in my private garage downtown. The Civic was just for family visits, another prop in my elaborate performance. Not everyone measures success the same way, Marcus, I replied mildly. He leaned back, spreading his arms wide. Really? Because from where I'm sitting, success looks pretty damn good. Morrison Tech's stock price has doubled since Dad made me CEO. We're about to be acquired by one of the biggest names in the industry. Meanwhile, you're still playing with paintbrushes in your garage studio. Little did he know that his company's miraculous turnaround over the past year had been orchestrated entirely by Nova Dynamics, working through a series of shell companies. I'd watched my family run Morrison Tech into the ground, waited until they were desperate, then swooped in anonymously to save them, only to position myself for tomorrow's takeover. Speaking of the acquisition, my father interjected, practically glowing with pride, the signing ceremony is tomorrow morning. Soon the Morrison name will be associated with true innovation and success. I thought about the documents waiting in my briefcase upstairs, the ones that would reveal exactly who had bought Morrison Tech. 8 years of careful planning were about to pay off. That's wonderful, I said, standing up. But I should head home. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Marcus laughed loudly. A meeting? With who? Your paintbrushes? I smiled, thinking of the conference room downtown where I would soon reveal myself as the CEO of Nova Dynamics. Something like that. As I drove home in my deliberately modest Civic, I reflected on how it had all started. 8 years ago, fresh out of Yale with an MBA and a perfect GPA, I'd approached my father about modernizing Morrison Tech. I had ideas about digital transformation, cloud computing, and AI integration, things the company desperately needed to stay competitive. But Dad had already decided Marcus would be his successor. He's more suited for leadership, Dad had said. You're too artistic, too soft. Business requires a firm hand. So I left, letting them believe I was pursuing my hobby of painting. In reality, I was building Nova Dynamics from the ground up, using my art sales as a cover while I accumulated clients, patents, and an ever-growing portfolio of technology solutions. I hired the best minds in the industry, people who didn't care that I sometimes showed up to meetings with paint on my clothes. Under my leadership, Nova Dynamics revolutionized how companies approach digital transformation. We grew exponentially, but I kept my name out of the press, using a series of holding companies to mask my ownership. Meanwhile, I watched Morrison Tech flounder under Marcus's leadership. He was all flash and no substance, making splashy announcements but failing to innovate. The company's stock price plummeted, their market share shrank, and their technology grew increasingly obsolete. When I started desperately searching for buyers, I made my move. Through a labyrinth of shell corporations, Nova Dynamics began acquiring Morrison Tech's debt and positioning itself as their savior. Marcus thought he orchestrated a brilliant deal. In reality, he played right into my hands. Arriving at my downtown penthouse, I changed out of my struggling artist costume into a Taylor Armani suit. Tomorrow would change everything. Part of me felt guilty for the deception, but I remembered all the times they dismissed me, belittled my ideas, and treated me like a disappointment. My phone buzzed, a text from David, my CFO. Everything's set for tomorrow. Board members will arrive at 8:30. Press release ready to go at 9:15. I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my family was probably still sitting around the dinner table, congratulating themselves on Morrison Tech's good fortune, blissfully unaware that their failed artist daughter was about to become their boss. I picked up a small wrapped package from my desk, a gift for Marcus. Inside was one of my paintings, one he particularly mocked at a family gathering last year. I'd had it framed alongside a copy of tomorrow's press release announcing Nova Dynamics' acquisition of Morrison Tech, with my name and photo prominently featured as founder and CEO. Still painting in your garage? He'd asked tonight. Tomorrow, he'd learn that sometimes the most successful people are the ones who let others underestimate them. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and went to bed, thinking about how 8 years of careful planning would culminate in one unforgettable morning. The failed artist was about to reveal herself as a business mogul, and I couldn't wait to see their faces when they realized the truth. The next morning dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through my penthouse windows as I prepared for the most important meeting of my life. I chose my outfit carefully, a crisp white blazer over a black silk shirt, paired with tailored trousers. Professional, powerful, and nothing like the paint-stained clothes my family was used to seeing me in. My assistant, Lisa, arrived early with a detailed schedule for the day. She was one of the few people who knew both sides of my life, having helped maintain my cover story for the past 5 years. "The boardroom is ready," she reported, handing me a coffee. "Marcus and your father just arrived. They're in the waiting area on the first floor." I checked my reflection in the mirror, hardly recognizing myself. Gone was the messy bun and paint-splattered clothes. Instead, I saw a polished executive ready to take control of her family's company. "Have they noticed anything unusual?" I asked, adjusting my blazer. Lisa smirked. Marcus questioned why the signing was happening at Nova's headquarters instead of Morrison Tech's offices. The lawyers told him it was standard procedure for the acquiring company. I grabbed my briefcase containing the final acquisition documents and the press. On standby. "The story will break at 9:15, exactly 15 minutes after you reveal yourself." Everything was perfectly orchestrated, just as I planned. Now it was time to set the final act in motion. I took the private elevator down to the executive conference room on the 39th floor. Through the glass walls, I could see the Morrison Tech board members had already arrived, along with their legal team. They were studying the spectacular view of the city, not realizing that the building they were standing in belonged to the daughter they'd written off as a failure. At exactly 8:55 a.m., Lisa's voice came through my earpiece. "Your father and Marcus are on their way up." I positioned myself at the head of the conference table, back turned to the door, ostensibly reviewing some documents. I heard the door open, followed by Marcus's booming voice. "Well, let's get this show on the road. Where's the mysterious CEO of Nova Dynamics?" I slowly turned around, savoring the moment. "Right here, Marcus." The look on my brother's face was priceless. His jaw dropped, color draining from his features as recognition dawned. Behind him, my father stumbled slightly, grabbing the back of a chair for support. "Sophie," Marcus's voice cracked. "What? What are you doing here?" I smiled, gesturing to the seats around the table. "Please, everyone take a seat. We have a lot to discuss." The conference room fell into stunned silence. Marcus remained frozen by the door, his usual confident smirk replaced by open-mouthed shock. My father had sunk into a chair, his face ashen as he stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. "This is impossible," Marcus finally sputtered. You're an artist. You paint in your garage." I moved around the conference table with practiced ease, nodding to board members who looked equally confused. "Actually, I'm the founder and CEO of Nova Dynamics. The art, that was just a hobby, and a convenient cover." "A cover?" My father found his voice, though it trembled slightly. "For what?" "For building this." I gestured to the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the cityscape beyond. "Nova Dynamics, the company that's about to acquire Morrison Tech." Marcus's face flushed red. "This is a joke. It has to be. There's no way you could. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a Civic." "That apartment is one of my properties," I replied calmly. "The Civic is just for family visits. Would you like to see my actual car collection?" Before he could respond, Lisa entered with a stack of folders. "The final acquisition documents, Ms. Morrison." Marcus lunged forward, snatching one of the folders. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages, eyes growing wider with each turn. $40 million. Subsidiary integration. Full operational control. He looked up at me, face pale. "You're really buying us?" "I already have," I corrected him. "What's happening today is simply making it official. Now shall we begin?" The next hour was a blur of legal proceedings. I watched as my family's carefully constructed reality crumbled around them. Every document signed, every term reviewed, further confirmed that their failed artist daughter had orchestrated the entire deal. "But how?" my father kept muttering. "How did you do this without us knowing?" I waited until the last document was signed before answering. "Remember 8 years ago when I came to you with ideas about modernizing Morrison Tech? You said I was too artistic for business, too soft." He flinched at his own words being thrown back at him. "So I left," I continued, "and built exactly what Morrison Tech needed. A company specializing in digital transformation and technological innovation. Everything I tried to tell you about 8 years ago. Nova Dynamics made it happen, just not for Morrison Tech." "Until now," Marcus said quietly. "Until now," I agreed. As the board members and legal team filed out, I pulled out the wrapped package I brought from home. "A gift for you, Marcus." He unwrapped it slowly, staring at the painting he'd mocked last year, now framed alongside the press release announcing Nova's acquisition of Morrison Tech. His hands trembled slightly as he read the headline. "Tech industry prodigy Sophie Morrison acquires family company in $40 million deal." "All those times you laughed at my art," I said softly. "I was actually building an empire, one that just bought your company." "Sophie," my father started, but I held up a hand. I don't want apologies. I want you to understand something." I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd conquered while they'd underestimated me. Success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it wears paint-stained jeans and drives a Civic. Sometimes it lets people underestimate it, because that's the best way to prove them wrong. The press conference that followed was a media frenzy. Reporters clamored to understand how the youngest Morrison had secretly built a technology powerhouse while maintaining the facade of a struggling artist. Photos of me in my paint-splattered clothes were juxtaposed with images of my polished CEO persona. The headlines wrote themselves. "Art of Deception. How a Failed Artist Built a $40 million Tech Empire in Secret." And Morrison Tech's new boss. The daughter they wrote off. In the weeks that followed, my family struggled to reconcile their image of me with reality. Mom stopped by my real office, looking lost among the sleek modern furnishings and wall-to-wall windows. "Why did you tell us?" she asked, running her fingers along my awards shelf. "All these years. Would you have believed me?" I countered. "Or would you have dismissed it, like everything else I did that didn't fit your expectations?" She had no answer. Marcus took longer to come around. I found him in my office late one evening, staring at the painting I'd given him. "I've been such an ass," he said without turning around. "Yes, you have." He finally faced me. "How do you not hate us? All the things we said, the way we treated you." I sat down behind my desk, considering his question. Because this was never about revenge. It was about proving something to myself. You all thought I was throwing my life away when I left Morrison Tech. I needed to show myself that I could succeed on my own terms. And now you want us all, he said with a bitter laugh. No, I corrected him. Now I have the chance to make Morrison Tech what it always should have been. The company I tried to tell Dad about 8 years ago. The question is, are you willing to learn? He studied me for a long moment. Learn from my little sister, the secret tech mogul. A ghost of his old smirk appeared. I suppose stranger things have happened. The transformation of Morrison Tech began immediately. I appointed new leadership, implemented the technological innovations I'd envisioned years ago, and watched as the company's value steadily climbed. Dad retired, finally admitting that he'd been wrong about me. I was so focused on what success should look like, he told me over dinner one night, that I completely missed what it actually looked like. A year later, I stood on stage at the National Business Innovation Awards, accepting the Entrepreneur of the Year award. My family sat in the front row, not out of obligation, but with genuine pride. Success isn't about proving others wrong, I said in my acceptance speech. It's about proving yourself right. Sometimes the best way to do that is to let people underestimate you, to work quietly while they're busy making noise. And sometimes success looks exactly like failure, until it doesn't. After the ceremony, I returned to my studio, my real studio, not the garage workshop I used as cover. Picking up a brush, I started a new painting. This one wasn't for show or maintaining appearances. This was for me. On a canvas, I depicted a woman in paint-stained clothes, standing in the shadow of a skyscraper. In one hand she held a paintbrush, in the other a business contract. Behind her, barely visible, stretched the vast skyline of her business empire. I titled it The Art of Success. Marcus saw it at my next gallery showing, a real one this time, featuring works I created throughout my years of building Nova Dynamics. Each painting told part of my story. The frustration, the secret triumphs, the quiet determination. You really were an artist all along, he said, studying the collection. Just not the kind we thought. The best art, I replied, is the kind that makes people see things differently. Sometimes it takes years for them to understand what they're looking at. The painting now hangs in Nova Dynamics headquarters lobby, a reminder to everyone who enters that success doesn't always wear a suit and tie. Sometimes it comes with paint on its hands and determination in its heart. As for my family, they've learned to look past appearances, to understand that greatness doesn't always announce itself. At our weekly family dinners, now held in my penthouse, there's no more mockery, no more condescension. Instead, there's a new appreciation for different paths to success, and a growing understanding that sometimes the person you underestimate the most turns out to be the one you should have been learning from all along. My garage studio still exists. I keep it as a reminder of where I started and how far I've come. Sometimes, late at night, I go there to paint wearing my old paint-stained clothes. But now when I paint, it's not to maintain a cover story, it's to celebrate the art of proving yourself right, even when everyone else thinks you're wrong. Because sometimes success looks exactly like failure until the moment it doesn't. And sometimes the best revenge isn't proving others wrong, it's proving yourself right in ways they never imagined possible.